Hi, welcome everyone to Owen Mitchell's Neuropsychology webinar series, the sequel, hopefully even bigger and better than the original. So today's the first of two. The next one is on the 8th of December, and we'll be looking at transition between childhood to young adulthood. So please do join us then too. But before I officially kick off this first webinar, I've got a few housekeeping matters to flag. So after the presentation, there will be a moderated Q&A session. You can submit any question you would like, preferably on the topic at hand today, via the Q&A function on Teams. Please do include your name and email address. It's not that we want to name and shame you, it's more that if we cannot get to that particular question today, we will respond after the event. Today's webinar is recorded, so thankfully managed to get myself to the hairdressers in time yesterday, but more importantly, the recording and the slides will be circulated after the event. Feedback forms, I know they can be a pain. I'm well aware of that. However, ours take less than a minute to complete, and they really do help us. So at the end of the first webinar series in the summer, we went through them carefully. And this is why we're having the sequel. It's because of that feedback. So do please take the time to fill those in. It is really appreciated. And finally, if you do hear the fire alarm go off, well, that's me. So I'll take myself off to safety, but fear not, the webinar will go on. So a bit about me and why this topic is so important. So I'm Laura Middleton Gerard. I'm a partner in the London office. I'm TBI accredited via the Association of Personal Injury Lawyers, and I'm one of the assessors for that accreditation. More relevantly for today, I'm part of Owen Mitchell's National Paediatric Serious Injury Team. I'm really pleased that this topic is being discussed today. Essentially, how do we keep our younger patients involved and engaged in rehab? And I remember one of my very first cases back in the day. It was a young girl with a TBI, and she had found solace and, importantly, therapeutic benefit from equine therapy when other inputs had not really resonated with her. And that case and the approach there really stayed with me. And on cases since, I've witnessed the benefit of art therapy, and you need only speak to people at the RNLU to know the benefits of that. Nintendo Wii's being recommended to address audiovestibular difficulties, music therapy in all its guises to help with memory sequencing. Kung Fu at the CCPNR was recommended to help with audiovestibular problems, but also concentration, and importantly, to give a particular client of mine a sense of belonging and identity. So today we have two fine speakers who will be talking to us, maybe without hesitation, repetition or deviation, who knows, on the subject of the rehab initiatives that they have put in place. Rehab, but not as we traditionally have come to know it, but just as effective, if not more, with younger patients. So my first speaker today is Dr. Penny Trayner. So she is a paediatric clinical neuropsychologist, clinical psychologist based in Manchester. I won't hold that against her. In 2009, she founded a specialist community-based neuropsych rehab service for children with ABI. And this service serves patients and families across the UK. Penny has co-authored articles in leading international journals and is an invited speaker at various conferences speaking on topics related to neuropsychology and mental health. And believe it or not, Penny multitasks, and when she's not being a fine neuropsychologist, she is also a professional DJ, and she has used those skills to co-design a DJing course for as a rehab program, as a vehicle for helping children recover from catastrophic brain injuries. And today she is joined by DJ Mark One, an accomplished DJ since 1991, a DJ and producer for a little known band called Texas, a DJ tutor with over 25 years experience, helping over 2,000 students over the years. He's a curator of the GCSE curriculum. He's a curator, examiner, at the London College of Music for the world's only accredited graded DJ examinations. And he's also guest lecturer at the Royal Northern College of Music. So really two great guests who will be able to speak to you on this fine topic today. So Penny, Mark, over to you.
Yes, Laura, thank you for that introduction. And yeah, so for the past 13 years, I've been working in brain injury rehabilitation. And as Laura said, I run a community-based service based in central Manchester, but we actually see children and young adults all over the UK. As well as doing that, I'm also, like I say, an honorary lecturer in clinical health psychology at the University of Manchester. So that allows me to continue with my research interests around some of this. So we have been able to evaluate a lot of the programs I'm going to talk to you about today. And like I say, we'll come on to hear a little bit more from Mark later on when we're going to talk about the DJing for Rehabilitation program that we designed together. But first, just to go over what we're going to cover in this session, I was just going to talk a little bit about the background and rationale for unique community-based interventions. So within my service, we've designed and delivered a number of interventions, and the aim really is to increase motivation and engagement and address people's real-world problems out in the real world. So I'm going to tell you a bit about a few of those interventions we've delivered for parents, for survivors of acquired brain injury, and then, as I say, Mark will join us to talk about the BPN programme, which pools both of our expertise. And as Laura said in my introduction, during the day I am a jobbing neuropsychologist. This was actually a photo taken in a single day where I was testing in the morning, and then that evening I was DJing. So, you know, my background as a neuropsychologist meant that, you know, for 16 years I've been training and didn't have a huge amount of time for outside activities. So I felt I'd really missed the boat when it came to doing things like DJing and other activities like that. But then in 2019, I managed to, I still can't quite understand how it happened, but I managed to win a place on a first of its kind program that was a kind of a boot camp for learning to DJ and produce music. So they literally took us from zero to hero in 3 months. This was a course run by DJ Lisa Lashes, who is to this day the only DJ who has been in the top 10 DJs in the world who's a female. So it was a really, really high caliber course. And by the end of it, I went from not even being able to label the equipment or know what it was to, by the end of it, having a radio show, playing out at festivals, at parties. And I'm now signed up with a talent agency in Manchester. So I do corporate events, which is that event you see there. So you never know, I might pop up at one of your events in future. But as soon as I started DJing and as soon as I started practicing, it became immediately obvious to me how this activity could be a perfect vehicle for delivering rehab. And like I say, I'll come on to how it evolved from there when I speak with Mark later. But first, just to think about why we might want to offer activities like DJing and rehabilitation. So, well, the current literature tells us that actually our approach to rehabilitation should be delivered in ecologically valid context. So, like I say, in the real world where people are living their lives. Rehab should really encourage peer support. There should be a focus on social participation. It should be family-centered and systemic, so it should involve all the family members or caregivers who might be involved in the individual's life. And the focus should really be on creating an overall enriched environment rather than focusing on really task-specific skills. So it's the idea that the approach should consider and try to address that need for maximal cognitive function in all domains. So it's very goal-directed, but the focus should not be on overcoming impairments. It should be about participation and ensuring that people are able to do the things they want to do in their lives. Okay. So, and why group-based interventions? So when we're looking at interventions, there is a very strong evidence base for delivery in groups for a number of different techniques and interventions. So, for example, parenting skills interventions have a huge evidence base for group-based approaches going back, 30, 40 years. And actually has a much stronger evidence base than one-to-one intervention. So actually, although people sometimes can be worried about groups and think that perhaps it's a diluted approach and the individual attending might not get as much from it, actually the evidence is actually they learn much more together. And that's because there's the opportunity for social learning and support. And it's kind of this idea of creating this therapeutic milieu, which is, it's about an idea of creating a totally safe environment where people can grow and can learn and develop therapeutically, and like I say, with support from others. So that's why we look at group-based interventions. So starting first of all with an intervention that we delivered for parents. So long before I became a neuropsychologist, my background was actually as a clinical psychologist working for Sure Start. And so I spent many months or a couple of years working in central Manchester in some challenging areas, delivering parenting skills interventions to many different families. So having had that opportunity, I've used that later in my neuropsychology work and have adapted a program, the Incredible Years program, specifically for families or the parents of children who have an acquired brain injury. So it was adapted with a colleague of mine, Dr. Stuart Rust, who is a consultant clinical psychologist and the lead for rehabilitation at Manchester Children's Hospital. I was Stuart's specialist trainee. So Stuart and I have been delivering these interventions together for longer than I care to remember. So he was sort of perfectly placed really to deliver this with me. The model was to hold fortnightly groups with catch-up calls in between. This model through Webster Stratton is very well validated. It's been validated for at least 30 years. And it has been adapted for all sorts of different populations. There's a specialist program for children with anxiety, for children with ADHD, and this is the program that we adapted for children with acquired brain injury. I'm not going to go into all of this now, just for the sake of time, but this is the model that we follow through the sessions. And most importantly with this model, where all the change happens, where the most important part of the intervention happens is in those beginning sessions, which is all about building relationships, using play and praise and engaging activities to really help parents reconnect with their children and build up that relationship before we start to get into dealing with difficult behaviours. So it's a really wonderful program, and like I say, very well validated. In keeping with the program, one of the sort of fundamentals is that the participants in the program should feel nurtured. So they should come along to this and they should leave feeling really nurtured and really looked after, so they're able to take those feelings into their own homes. So we always find a lovely venue. This is the Parsonage Centre in Didsbury. We also have refreshments. We really look after people. It's part of the program. It's embedded in the program. And the last group we ran was in 2017. Where we looked at evaluating parents' symptoms of depression and stress and showed a significant reduction in both. And parents also reported a reduction in their own child's emotional problems and difficulties with other children and their overall impact of any difficulty. So everyone who attended that course got a lot better. And you can see there's a word cloud with just some feedback that people shared. So, you know, it was an excellent course. Some of the challenges of running those sorts of courses are, by the nature of the work and the way that our service is set up, we see families all over the UK. So it's very difficult to find a suitable location where all attendees can attend, where they'll be able to access easily, and where they'll be able to get to it physically. So yeah, that's always a challenge. And like I said, alluded to at the start, it's always a challenge to, I think, sell a parenting group sometimes to referrers, because sometimes they are concerned that the parent may not get as much out of it as a one-to-one intervention from the clinician. And clinically, this is definitely not the case, particularly with these types of interventions. They're really powerful, but it is important that you have the appropriate skill mix of the facilitators. You know, I'm very lucky that I have an extensive experience in running Webster Stratton groups, as does Stuart Rust, and so we were able to bring that together. And I'm aware that similar groups are run at CPPNR, so there are lots of pockets of these interventions happening all over the country. We definitely need more. Everyone could do with this support. Okay, so that's one intervention that we ran that was aimed at parents. And now let's go on to thinking about interventions that are tailored for young brain injury survivors. So if we could just cue up the first video, please, that would be great.
After an acquired brain injury, you might find some things more difficult than they were before, such as memory, attention, organisation, managing your emotions, and motivation. This can feel very overwhelming. There are loads of ways you can get better at these things, and there might be a few people in your life who are there especially to help you with them. One way you can improve is through football training. Football can help you improve stamina, memory, fitness, friendships, and attention. It can also help you pace yourself and know when to take a break. Enjoy this training session with Football Minds.
Thank you. So the Football for Rehabilitation programme was something that we delivered in partnership with professional footballers who already operate a performance coaching academy based over in Liverpool. And like I said, like the video summarised there, you know, it's clear to see, it's obvious to see the benefits of football. And we know that a lot of young people really identify with football as a sport they really want to be able to access. So, you know, I've listed some of the benefits there, which you can read in your own time. We will be sending out these slides. But, you know, there are physical benefits in terms of endurance and in terms of improving sleep and reducing daytime fatigue, as well as the impact on improving your mood through releasing endorphins and all of that good stuff. There's lots of cognitive skills targeted through football training. You know, you're having to pay attention to your coach, your teammates, you're having to switch your attention, divide your attention, you're having to plan what you do, you're having to organise yourself, hold verbal instructions in mind long enough to be able to do what you need to do on the pitch. You know, it involves novel problem solving, and let's face it, particularly for the parents, often emotional regulation and managing your emotions on the pitch, especially if you get kind of excited and carried away. So, you know, it's got a really popular peer perception, and, you know, having this skill really allows young people to be able to connect back with their peers, and maybe they'd be able to get much more engaged in football in the playground once they've got a bit more confidence. So we designed a programme setting up bi-weekly football sessions in which the children and young people will have training initially just to talk about various different cognitive skills and what's going to be targeted in the session. And then they'll have very specialist football coaching, either one-to-one or in very, very small groups. And like I say, delivered by, you know, specially trained football coaches who do a lot of work already with children with a number of difficulties. Okay. So, you know, the aim really is to, increase people using cognitive strategies through this incidental learning approach, and get them back into regular exercise, see what benefits that has to them in terms of their physical activity and their mood. And like I say, give them that new social identity and get them a new support from peers. So, and actually, you know, longer term, there are some individuals who will be able to go on to access roles such as coaching and refereeing. These are paid roles that are part-time positions that could be very, very attainable for a lot of people with an acquired brain injury who may not be able to work full-time. Okay. So yeah, that's another intervention that we've run, which unfortunately was slightly delayed getting delayed getting started due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But like I say, we're hopeful that we'll be able to get that going again from next summer. Okay, so on to the exciting bit. So this is really my kind of passion, this next bit. This is our brain bootcamp. So this is the point where Mark and I met. So my inspiration for running a bootcamp was from my experiences visiting places like the Oliver Zangwill Centre in Cambridge, as well as getting to visit the inspiration for that centre, the Barrow Neurological Centre in Arizona, where I was privileged to get to visit twice in 2018 and 2019, just in the nick of time. So that kind of model from those centres of very, very intensive rehabilitation is incredible, but it doesn't necessarily translate very well to children because they're in school and they need to be living at home, and they need to be staying close to their homes to get their rehab, you know, wherever possible. So, so we took the model and we took that idea, but we decided to come up with a compromise and came up with using the sort of American summer camp idea to run the first brain boot camp in 2019, which was an intensive 4-day non-residential camp, which combined cognitive skills training and then real-world application of those skills through DJ training sessions with Mark in the afternoon. So we were aiming to provide a safe space and a supportive space for young people to acquire these knowledge and skills and practice them. And again, it was all about incidental learning. It was kind of getting people doing this stuff so they could see how it practically has a benefit in their life through something that is meaningful and motivating, something they really wanted to do. So Mark and I ran the first brain bootcamp in July 2019. Unfortunately, we weren't able to run one last year. Or this year, unfortunately, due to COVID, but hopefully next year we'll be back. So this is kind of loosely the structure of how it looks. Like I say, in the morning, you have workshops, really, and you can see from the photos up there, these are really fun and engaging workshops. These are really structured activities where people can, people really get to engage with the facilitators and practice the skills. And then in the afternoon, Mark would come in and do the DJing training. And on the last day, we also had a very specialist workshop teaching people how to scratch, which is something I cannot yet do. So hopefully Mark will show us a little demo of that later. And then, we also embedded in this model again is this kind of importance of well-being and self-care. So our very last session was all about that. And on the last day, we do something that they do at Barrow, which is everyone that graduates from the program at Barrow gets a cake and gets to really celebrate their graduation. So, you know, we did all that together, which was really important. Oh, and at the beginning of the week, we also had a guest presenter come in and do some vision boarding, because actually we talked to young people a lot about their goals, and we asked them to think about their lives and goals, and it's quite hard sometimes to be able to do that. So this facilitator came in and really helped people to shape those things up visually through a lovely vision boarding activity. So that was excellent. I've summarised up kind of really what happened in the group. We will be sending around some of this information, but you know, you can kind of really see why DJing really helps individuals practice these skills. So if we think about the sort of skills that are targeted in DJing, which Mark will talk to you about in much more detail, we know that there are a variety of different things and activities that target lots of the key areas that we want to be addressing in rehabilitation. For example, working memory. You have to be able to hold the different tracks in mind and be able to count along the beats and be able to think about what song you're listening to and what's coming on next and how you put those together. In terms of executive functioning, you need to think about decision making with regard to your selection of your tracks. You need to choose where you're going to do your mix points. Mark will tell you a bit more about this much more technically than I'm able to. And you know, the style of tracks and how the set goes together. You know, if you go on to develop a career in DJing, you have to manage your diary, you have to manage your appointments, you might have to organise sets and plan and organise your travel, etc. So it can go as big or as narrow as you want it to, and suits the individual. Okay. It also targets memory skills, like I say, organising and compiling playlists, and kind of remembering what you've got in there and what you've done before and putting it all together, remembering how all the equipment works, remembering the functions of all the different cue points and things that Mark will tell us about. And finally, real focus on kind of attention skills. So, you know, you have to listen to songs, you have to listen to music, you need to be out there doing this, and you need to be able to switch between different tasks and activities and different things you have to do on the controller in order to be able to DJ. So it sort of targets those attention skills in a really functional way. And all of that has a real impact on confidence and self-esteem. You know, it really has a popular peer perception. Everyone wants to be a DJ. I wanted to be a DJ. And actually, it gives someone a real sense of self-esteem and confidence of something that they were able to do and something that helps them feel connected to society. So again, just some of the challenges of the Brain Bootcamp was, again, finding a suitable location that everyone can get to. But also encouraging the attendees to be able to come along, particularly as some young people may have limited self-confidence, and it takes a lot of encouragement and setting up to make sure everyone feels comfortable. But like I say, we've had good attendance and the feedback has been really great. Once people get over the door, they usually do really well. Finding a time to do it, promoting attendance during the summer holidays, all those kind of pragmatics really when you're running this sort of intervention. But actually, when we've evaluated it, we found real clinical benefits in terms of increasing resiliency, optimism, self-efficacy, trust and comfort in the world. And we've recorded that there are the young people who've accessed the group have shown increased engagement afterwards with their wider rehabilitation. It's allowed them to have greater integration with peers. Mark will come on to in a minute to talk about a couple of case examples. And like I say, it's participating in a really meaningful and enjoyable activity that can be really, really helpful and for all those extra benefits just that music bring. So yeah, from that experience, Mark and I kind of realised just how successful it had been. And we really put our heads together and thought, actually, can we make this into something a bit more structured that people would be able to access more widely? And we also wanted to design a program that could not only be accessed by children, but also adults. So from that, we went on to develop our DJing for Rehabilitation program, which we've called Brains Powered by Music, BPM, which is a focused, a structured, step-by-step program in which Mark will tell us all about in a moment, which builds up DJing skills alongside, like I say, this incidental practice of all these skills that we've talked about. There's some home-based tasks to do outside of lessons, so it really keeps people engaged. And at the end of the course, there is sort of opportunities to showcase your work in all sorts of different areas, which, like I say, Mark will tell us about in a moment. And, you know, the young people that we saw that have gone on to participate in the program with Mark, they've showed a real improvement in their self-concept. We've shown clinically significant reductions in symptoms of anxiety and depression. So these are things that we weren't specifically targeting, but these are effects of the program. And improved self-identity. And like I say, that sense of social support, that sense of belonging that is so important to all of us. And particularly after, you know, an acquired brain injury, there may be much more limited opportunities for gaining that identity and getting social support. So being part of a group plays a real key role in being able to predict future well-being and reducing those feelings of feeling disabled by one's symptoms. So social groups, we know, the research tells us, are really effective when group members feel comfortable to be able to, you know, address each other's concerns as well and don't have to make allowances or excuses. So you really need it to be a very comfortable and contained setting to make sure that you make it safe for everyone. But when you do that, you know, you get, you know, you can really level up the playing field for these young people. You know, it means that everyone can DJ, as Mark will come on to now. Mark will get everyone doing it, and through his program, everyone has an opportunity to do this. It gives people a new identity that's not tied to their brain injury and a new skill they can take into life and into adulthood. So, you know, this is really our motivation and drive behind doing this. So with that said, I think you've had enough from me, so I'm going to hand over to Mark. So I'm just going to, by way of introduction, just share a little intro video. Over to you, Mark. I'll just load up the slides.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure being here. Just to put that video into some form of context, that was a very short performance video. It's not traditional DJing in the sense of what people will know DJing as being. They're probably looking at that thinking, why is he pressing all those buttons and not doing this action with his finger in his ear? That was more based on a type of DJing which is more performance based, which is using the DJ controller as a musical instrument, which I'll mention later on is part of the criteria you would find within the graded and accredited exams. So if you wondered what I was doing when I was pressing all those buttons, there's some form of context to the video. So just before I go into my journey, Penny, I'd like to say that watching those slides of the Brain Bootcamp brought back some amazing memories, and not only were those sessions pivotal for the children who attended, but also for myself, because even though I'd been a DJ tutor for nearly 20 years and a DJ for 30 years, when I left the Brain Bootcamp and passed over the knowledge and saw the effect and the positive effect it was having with those children, it was almost like the last 30 years made sense. it was almost like those 30 years and everything that I'd done had built up to that moment, and that's when I realised that we had something positive and something special. So my story is, yes, nearly 35 years of DJing. I've DJed all over the world. I started to learn to DJ back in 1987 when I didn't have any equipment. And one thing that I'm constantly mindful of is that I want to make DJing accessible and inclusive as much as possible. Because when I started to learn to DJ, I didn't have any DJ equipment. I actually was given a DJ mixer for my birthday, but no equipment to mix any tracks with. So when I was very young, I used to play the drums very badly. And I put a drum either side of the mixer to emulate a turntable. And I used to watch the videos and I used to imitate the videos and just imitate the motions that they were doing, which led on to me going on to winning 3 regional DJ mixing championships. Just purely through having that passion and that drive and that determination of watching these videos and imitating what these DJ champions were doing, and always had that passion and drive for DJing and music. Those who are over the age of 40 may remember a TV show called The Hitman and Her with Michaela Strachan and Pete Waterman. That gave me an appetite for wanting to be around nightclubs and events and music and just providing entertainment for people. Told my teacher, careers advisor at school, that that's what I wanted to do when I left school. I was immediately told I couldn't do that. I had to get a proper job because back in 1987, 88, 89, it wasn't really deemed an actual career being a DJ. It was something that people did at the weekends as part of a job to earn some extra income. So beyond winning the mixing championships, which was mainly focused around scratching, which I don't know if you know the concept of scratching, is all about creating different drum patterns and different melodies, etc. Something similar to what you saw in the video. I got a job in a recording studio doing scratches for a Manchester-based record label. And they asked me if I wanted to go on tour with a band that they were doing a remix for. And I said, yes, fine. It'd be an opportunity to go and play some gigs around the UK, really looking forward to it. And I get a phone call from this lady from Glasgow. Now, take into account that back then I was an underground hip hop DJ. I was into playing like Run DMC, LL Cool J, music from New York. I'd never heard of a band called Texas. So I agreed to do the gigs. My first gig with them, I didn't realise they were Europe's biggest selling band at the time. My first gig with Texas was later with Jules Holland, with William Bell, The Roots and Oasis were there as well. And my first ever live performance was Wembley Arena. Now, I always dreamt, I used to stare out my bedroom window as a child, and I always dreamt of A, being on top of the Pops, which I've done 7 times, and B, playing at Wembley, which I've also done 7 times. So they were quite pivotal moments as well, and also developed that sense of not necessarily what you project will come true, but if you determine you have that passion and determination that you can actually achieve absolutely anything you want to in life. And you know, the fact that I'm here 35 years later from seeing someone DJ on television is really testament to that. And then beyond going into nightclubs and touring the world with the band Texas, I got into teaching DJing. Learned my craft in teaching over 20 years, taught over 2,000 people to DJ. But throughout teaching people how to mix tracks together, I was always aware that there were more skills that were being developed here. Certainly a lot of people over those 20 years and those 2,000 people, a lot of those people were coming to me for a sense of escapism or to kind of address and identify social anxiety issues or challenges that they may have. And DJing was a vehicle which certainly helped them with those challenges. Then I was asked to develop the GCSE curriculum for the exam boards of OCR, Educas, AQA and Pearson. Again, making DJing very accessible and inclusive and scaling as much as possible across the UK. You can actually now take DJing as part of your GCSE music. It now counts to 40% of GCSE. So you can take what you just saw in that video, you can take as your music performance. And then went on to develop the first ever accredited graded DJ exams with University of West London and London College of Music, and now I'm a guest lecturer at Royal Northern College of Music, and will develop their music programme to kind of modernise their music department really, and bring it into the 21st century. Because in my personal experience, I've noticed and identified that children and young adults identify more with modern music making techniques more so than being asked to play a flute or a piano, etc. So it's certainly more engaging. So that's kind of my journey up to this point. And then something very pivotal happened just before Penny and I met. My dad suffered as a complication of heart surgery. He suffered a near fatal stroke. He lost all the right side, all movement in his right side and all feeling, and he had acute aphasia, couldn't answer questions, couldn't even say his own name. All he could do was just raise his eyebrows to respond and react. And without any formal training, I left work for 3 months and started to work on his rehabilitation, just instinctively based on being around people and the experiences I'd accumulated over these 30 years of DJing. One morning, we're working on him trying to speak, say his name, answer questions. He's not really responding. Then John Lennon, Imagine, comes on the radio. He sings it word for word like this. As soon as the song is finished, he couldn't mutter a word. And even to tell that story sends shivers down my spine now, and not only to witness it. So I knew that there was power within music in order to help people with rehabilitation. And then Penny and I met. I had no idea what Penny did as a living, but we started to have conversations about the higher sense of what you can achieve with DJing. And Penny said, do you know what I do for a living? And then since then, that's when we kind of bonded and formed this partnership to build the BPM rehab program. So to cut a long story short, that's where we are today. So if we move on to the next slide, we'll have a brief overview of how the program can be delivered. It can be done in face-to-face sessions, again, being mindful of making it accessible and inclusive, regardless of anyone's situation or location. If there's a regional tutor, we have a network of tutors which I've trained myself, who are all NSPCC safeguard trained, and they are all currently studying for an accredited teaching diploma, which I have curated for University of West London as well. If there are no tutors within the location or geographically with anyone who wants to take the program, we can do remote sessions on Zoom. They are still as effective as face-to-face sessions. And also a progression of face-to-face sessions is taking learners into an actual studio environment at Pirate Studios. Pirate Studios have many studios around the UK, and certainly one of my current students, Liam, has unbelievably benefited from being in a social, creative environment. It honestly feels like he's grown up by about 5 years in 5 weeks. It's to see the transformation in him is unbelievable. So it's important. We feel it's important that if it's appropriate to take the learner into a social, creative environment, will allow them to be creative and express themselves through their DJing and their music collection. Within the program, we have animated presentations and handouts and supporting worksheets. We also have video on demand learning as well. And we also have integrated music streaming within the DJ program and the DJ software. Very aware that a lot of children carry their music around on their mobile device. Well, we can now integrate all that music from their mobile into the DJ program. So what are the learning outcomes? Let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, so most of the learning outcomes Penny has actually already mentioned in the previous slides. So I'm kind of here to talk about more the DJing aspect of it. From my perspective, teaching these young adults and these children to have that self-confidence and that self-belief in for them to achieve anything they want to, because I mentioned I'm testament to that, and that's something that I instill in them, and DJing is a perfect vehicle for that. To see a student go from having no understanding of music and DJing to be able to go on to perform in front of 500 people and have the confidence to stand up there on a stage and perform is groundbreaking in my opinion. And that's something that DJing does allow allowed to do. It has an absolute positive impact, as you can see, confidence and self-esteem. You know, there can be a lot of anxiety standing on a stage in front of 500 people you've never met before, certainly if you have certain challenges that you have to address. And also it's a really good experience and collaborative experience and bonding experience for not only the learner but for their family as well. You know, the families are just as proud to see, you know, their children performing on stage to 500 people. And touch wood, so far we have not had one mistake from any of our performers. So yeah, the benefits go way beyond anything I could say within 10 minutes during this webinar. But all the information can be found on the bpm.rehab website. So this is a typical example of what the learning materials do look like. If we go to the next slide, you see the slides are fully animated. Not only do we teach the basic principles of DJing, but all of these skills that we teach are transferable into other areas of life and other outside of DJing. We have very in-depth critical listening exercises, which I'll explain when I come to Liam's case study. And all of these goals are achievable, and you, at the end of the program, you will have met all the criteria to be able to take a graded exam. But as you can see by this slide, we teach not just DJing, we teach the principles of sound. One of my students actually damaged the cochlea due to a brain trauma, and they understood everything that I was talking about in terms of how sound works, how sound is vibration, how we perceive it. I know there's the cliche of 20/20 vision. Well, there's actually 20/20 hearing, because the audible range for humans is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz as well. So we teach those kind of concepts as well, which, you know, can be quite advanced, but still the students are always engaging and taking all that on board. We teach the concepts of the pulse, etc. Why do people nod their head to music, etc. So yeah, we cover way more than just DJing. So if you go to the next slide. And it's backed up with recaps as well, visual recaps, and it targets all the 7 learning styles of visual, oral, verbal, physical, logical, social, and solitary as well. You know, we were mindful that when we designed this program, that it had to target all the 7 learning styles. Okay, next slide, please. Going to the DJ gear. This is the actual DJ control you saw me performing on. This is Pioneer DJ's most accessible and entry-level DJ controller. It's £130, but the learning outcomes that you can achieve and the key skills you can develop on this £130 controller is no different from the £10,000 DJ setups you see behind me or you see at festivals. The learning outcomes and skills are exactly the same. And we've got to the next slide. This is the DJ software, which all the learners learn to navigate around, which is really it helps them navigate and understand the operating system of their laptop. This DJ software can be used on a laptop, a mobile or tablet device, so it's extremely portable. We can stream music services in. So again, being mindful that we wanted to make music and DJing accessible for anyone who undertakes the program. Now, what does all this lead up to? Yes, we have certain key skills and learning outcomes, but also, let's go to the next slide. We are the only program that can offer graded accredited exams. So I don't know if you can see them there. These are the 3 handbooks, grade 1, 3 and 5, which I wrote for University of West London in partnership with London College of Music, and International School of Musicians are actually the remote online examination platform. I've examined several students who came from backgrounds where they struggled in school, they had learning difficulties, they had social anxiety, and they were really underprivileged children. And so far, every one of them has passed with a distinction, all meeting the criteria, not only in our program, but other programs that I've designed as well. And I always say, if you go to the next slide, DJing is a gateway. With or without the accreditation, DJing is the gateway to being an artist, a producer, music producer, touring DJ. I've had students who've gone into marketing, music marketing, media marketing. Media is generally based around radio presentation and television presentation. I had an ex-student who suffered with low self-esteem issues and very low confidence. She's now a radio presenter on BBC Radio 1 and BBC Radio 2, so you can break into television. You can start running events. A previous student of mine who suffered quite badly with acute autism, learning difficulties and challenges within schools, is now an educator himself. He now teaches DJing and music production at School of Electronic Music in Manchester. There's, as you can see, there's 100 other career paths that you can take, but I firmly believe DJing is that gateway. If we move on to the next slide. Now, Liam.
Yeah, so I guess just in the interest of time, just to summarise really, that Liam was a young man, or DJ Cringe, I should say, as he's now known. He was referred to me about almost 4 years ago now. He's now 13, and he has an acquired brain injury as a result of meningitis shortly after he was born. You know, in summary, he has presented with multiple cognitive difficulties, and when he was referred to me, it's fair to say he had some significant behavioural challenges and emotional challenges. So we've worked with Liam. Liam's mum has come on our parenting skills course as well. So, you know, they're a really, really engaged family. You know, and fast forward to Mark's involvement. So we've had him on the BitBrain bootcamp program, and then he's continued with your sessions, Mark. Oh, you're on mute.
Standard. I'd just like to read some notes that I've taken on Liam throughout our sessions. So during Liam's first lessons, he displayed a confident ability to understand and navigate the features and functions of his computer alongside the user interface of the DJ software, creating playlists, importing music and analysing tracks in preparation for his lessons. His ability to apply these preparation techniques displayed a clear understanding of verbal, written and visual instructions, in addition to the importance of preparation before undertaking any tasks, transferable skills, not just in DJing. Before each lesson took place, Liam ensured he was fully prepared for each lesson. Liam would ensure the DJ equipment was set up, tested, notepad, pen, ready, downloaded and prepared music, and attended every Zoom call 30 minutes earlier than our scheduled session at 6 p.m. Every lesson started with a recap of the previous week's subject content. Liam answered most of the questions with confidence, and any questions he could not answer, he quickly referred back to his notepad for reference. We had a 6-month break, so Liam's program finished, and then we were waiting for the funding process to go through. We had a 6-month break. After that 6-month break, this is when we decided to take him into Pirate Studios. After that break, he displayed good memory retention and no loss of engagement whatsoever. He now anticipates what I'm going to ask him, and he completes the task before I've actually finished my sentence. And Liam is taking in his grade 1 exam in February with obviously full support from his mother. And I have no doubt he will pass with a distinction because he's already met most of the criteria within the exam. Quickly moving on to the next slide. This is Accessible Festival, so 2 of our students actually performed in front of 500 people, which again was pivotal not only for the students but for the parents and everyone involved. I thought it was an amazing achievement for them, because when I told them about the actual festival and gave them that goal to achieve over, it was only a month, you know, they were very nervous and they didn't believe that they could achieve that. And I instilled that self-belief in them and, you know, reinforced that they already have the necessary skills. We put the set together, they went on, performed it flawlessly. And Liam has absolutely flourished. You know, the picture in the middle where he's pointing at the camera compared to the picture when he came to the Brain Bootcamp, he literally has aged in about over 5 years in a short amount of time. So what's next? So we have set up the BPM CIC. Now this is set up to provide opportunities for underprivileged people who don't qualify for funding, who can't afford, you know, the benefits of this DJ program. We want to expand and scale into music production and music composition. We are forming a BPM talent agency. Through my contacts within music and media, we can provide opportunities for the learners once they've completed the program to go on and develop their skills and maybe generate a career in any of those areas. And also we want to provide opportunities for injured sports persons, ex-military, ex or current offenders as well. You know, we really want to scale this and make it as accessible and as inclusive as possible. And on to the next slide. If there are no tutors available within the area, we do have a CPD and tutor training package available. So that slide you can see there is actually myself and Penny at the Children's Trust.
Great.
As you can see with scratching there, I can't believe I used to get told off for doing that when I was younger, now make a career out of it. But you know, there's a lot of coordination and motor skills within scratching, and again, that's criteria within the examinations. But I've trained music teachers and DJ tutors around the UK and developed the LCA teaching diploma, which they can, anyone who healthcare professional who wants to undertake the training program has the opportunity to take the diploma as well. We believe that building strategic EdTech partnerships were pivotal in allowing us to scale not only nationally but internationally as well. So understanding the challenges and limitations that certain students will have, we've actively searched out EdTech companies that can provide solutions. So the top set of pictures is a partnership with a company called Digit Music, which will allow any student with limited mobility to be able to take the program and pass the exam using the DJ controller, which is essentially, we've got a comparison between the DJ controller and the accessible wheelchair controller. They actually do the same thing. It just says a MIDI message to a computer. It will allow anyone who wants to undertake the DJ program with limited mobility to still achieve those key skills and learning outcomes. And it's the same below a company called Scratch, which is, those squiggly lines are actually notation, similar to notation you would find on piano, guitar, etc. Well, with scratching, that noise I was making in the previous video, we can actually monitor the accuracy and the progression of people's coordination and motor unit application, and that's the first of its kind as well. So providing data is key, certainly, for moving forward with other strategic partnerships and accuracy and development of the program. So in 2022, strategic partnerships that we are in negotiations with is Tidal, a streaming service. We want to provide, as part of the program, we provide the DJ equipment for all of the learners, but we also want to be able to provide free music streaming. Anyone who doesn't have access to DJ equipment can learn to DJ in virtual reality with a partnership between TribeXR and Pioneer DJ. And for music composition and music theory, as you can see, there's a mobile device where you can start to learn music composition theory and piano, again, making it so accessible. And we felt it was important to educate learners on the dangers of protecting your hearing as well. Certainly vulnerable children within loud environments. So we're forming a partnership with the British Tinnitus Association to create awareness. And that is me done. Sorry for running over, as always.
Not at all, Mark. Thank you so much for that. And I think your scratching has just fried my computer, so that feedback is coming from my mic. So I'll wrap things up very quickly. I know we've got very limited time for Q&A, but I've seen a few. I will come off now the presentation, and we can see if we can answer a couple of those quickly. But just to let people know, yeah, so if you can contact us via bpm.rehab if you want to inquire about DJing, the DJing program, it is available to adults and children. And like I say, Mark has experience of teaching across the age span, so not a problem at all. And if you're interested in the Brain Bootcamp, which is when Mark and I are going to get our skills back together and bring the magic, we are running our next one between the 25th and the 29th of July in 2022, which will be at the Peace Centre in Warrington. And if you can contact me at my office, we will try and send you some more information, but we'll be publishing some more information in the new year. So that's it. I just wanted to end on that shot, really. That's Liam, Mark and I at that festival. That look on his face, I think, says it all, really. I'm just incredibly proud of what we've achieved. And like I say, thank you all for your time. I'm just going to come out of the presentation now and hand back over to Laura. Oh, sorry, Therese.
Thanks, Penny, and thanks, Mark. Great presentation. Really interesting talk on such a creative method of rehabilitation. We've got a little bit of time now for a Q&A, and we've had a few questions come in, so we'll kick right off. The first one is in relation to the age range, really, for people who can sort of participate in the BPM program. Is it just limited to children, or could a young adult join? The example we've been given, by the way, is a 24-year-old based in Edinburgh.
Mark, you're on mute, but yeah, I think absolutely fine. Children and adults, entirely accessible to everyone. You're never too old to learn how to DJ. You know, I found myself there with a bunch of very younger people, much younger than me, but actually, like I say, my career has taken off as well through DJing much later on than a 24-year-old. So yeah,
quite surprisingly, over the last 20 years, I've had a lot of doctors, lawyers, a barrister. I've even taught the Deputy Prime Minister Tom Watson to DJ. So yeah, you're never too old. So yeah, and I would say any age from 10 upwards. Would that be fair to say, Penny?
Yeah, I think to make sure that you've got kind of the concentration and kind of skill requirements and sort of the time and space in your life to be able to put in those practice requirements, I think that would be an ideal age. But having said that, you know, it's just like there are younger children who might be 8 or 9 who might be totally suitable as well. So yeah, let's get in touch and we see if we can discuss your individual needs. Yeah.
Great, thanks both. And Mark, it's probably quite easy to look at the list of awards and things like that and be quite daunted, I suppose, in terms of coming along to one of your sessions. There is no skill sort of, gap, or, there's sort of a prerequisite level, as long as you can sort of, age 10 onwards, all kind of very welcome.
No, I say age 10, I'm actually teaching a 5-year-old to DJ at the moment. So no, there's really no age range, and there's really no experience needed. There is kind of I mentioned this quite often, there's a bit of a fear factor when it comes to DJing. When you see a piece of equipment, we've got all of these buttons, we've got all of these dials, and don't necessarily know what tracks to play. That's a journey in itself, is exploring the equipment, exploring the software, exploring different musical genres. So no, there's no kind of level of expertise at all. My tagline is, if you can count to 4, you can DJ. I'll teach anyone to DJ in 20 minutes. The reason why the number 4, because there are 4 beats in a bar. All music is just a repetition of certain bars. That's the basics, but yeah.
Okay, great. And how would case managers or parents sort of register their child for one of the courses that we've talked about today?
So the BPM web, so you can contact regarding the DJing for Rehabilitation program straight away on, it's just bpm.rehab. So if you type that in your browser, it will take you to the website, and there's a contact form there. And we'll give you get in touch, and Mark will give you a call and just talk through your individual needs and get everything set up and make sure we can get things set exactly how you need them. The other interventions, now we have a bit more certainty around what's happening next year. I will be starting to advertise, so people can follow us on our social media. So either myself, I'm under Dr. Penny Trayner everywhere, and or through my service, which is clinical neuropsychology services. We're usually posting in most places, but like I say, if anyone wants to get in touch, I will be sending out the slides, and we will include contact details on there so they can get in touch. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm assuming there's probably geographical restraints to the service that you're providing. So what are they, and is there any alternative for sort of case managers who are further afield?
Yeah, Mark, do you want to take that one?
Well, in terms of the delivery of the content, geographically is not an issue at all, because we can hold the sessions remotely. I've held many years of successful remote lessons over the years, even before the pandemic. It was an effective method of teaching people that couldn't get to Manchester, because that's where I'm based, but that was never a limitation, and that was never holding back anyone's progress with the key learning skills and learning outcomes, just because it's a remote setting. You can achieve everything remotely.
Yeah, I think, like you say, Mark, one of those things we want to do with some of those new partnerships with regard to using the virtual software and the virtual DJ, it will expand that opportunity kind of even more. Mark had me in a VR headset a couple of weeks ago, DJing at my biggest festival in Las Vegas, you know, and actually, you know, doing that really did give me the emotional experience of being in that kind of setting. And so, again, it's another angle of just being able to expand, you know, what people experience and give them those opportunities so they feel really skilled up and confident before they go out in the world. But it is to say as well, I think it's a key point, is not everyone wants to play in festivals. Not everyone wants to play in nightclubs. Not everyone wants to do those things. It's about giving people the opportunity and the skills they need to then choose what's right for them, whether it be being a bedroom DJ. My decks are actually on the other side of this computer, on the other side of me, because I produce and send out radio shows straight from home. And if I've got 5 minutes in between patients, I can go and have a little practice. So, you know, that suits me and it suits my life. But for other people, they want to explore different opportunities. So I would say, don't be put off by the awards. And Mark is such a high caliber individual that we are extremely privileged and lucky that we found you to be able to partner with us on this, because I can't think of anyone in the country that could do such a good job of it. But it is about now sharing those skills so that other people are able to deliver it as well. So don't be put off by it. If you're a parent out there listening and you want to be a DJ, never mind the kids, you get in touch and, you know, look after yourselves too. And it's a great family activity. If you want to do back to back, one person jumps on, the other person jumps on. It's wonderful. You can do family parties. The opportunities are kind of endless, really. It's
certainly a method of becoming a cool parent again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and actually on that note, you know, I'm mindful of myself as a neuropsychologist. You know, I need to be able to connect with my patients, my younger patients. And this really gives me, you know, a vocabulary, something to talk to them about that allows us to connect and, you know, remove some of those barriers of age or perhaps other differences that might make it hard for them to relate to me. So yeah, I can now be a cooler neuropsychologist, which is great. So thank you for that, Mark.
That's really interesting, actually, because it takes me on to sort of my next question, which was sort of where do we go from here? You know, are there opportunities? And it sounds as if we're already sort of at the level where I thought possibly would be next, which was virtual reality. So that's actually something that's, you know, a feasible delivery method then of therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are challenges where, you know, it's a whole nother conversation about virtual reality. And I think people experience it differently. Some people, brain injury survivors, really do not get on with it at all and find it very difficult. Some people really love it. I think it's about using the technology, harnessing all of this technology and coming up with programs and plans that really suit the individual and really, you know, play to their strengths, whether that be some people prefer face-to-face, some people prefer remote. You know, we need to be able to flexible to that stuff, but I definitely think that's the way things are going. I can see within a few years' time, you'll be able to wear gloves with all that kind of hep feedback loops, and they'll be able to haptic feedback loops. They'll be able to, you know, feel the decks, and, you know, it's incredible, really. So yeah, the sky's the limits, really.
We've spoken about eye tracking software as well. So anyone with very limited mobility will still be able to take the program by using eye tracking software to change and apply those learning techniques with using the DJ software that's already available, and that DJ software is free as well.
Oh, that's great. That's incredible. It's just open to everybody, really. Then
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've always been mindful that I've had this long career, but I've always wanted to provide as much opportunity for everyone to be able to achieve whatever goal it is that because I, you know, hand on heart, I achieved my goals at the age of 24, which was Wembley and Top of the Pops and being in this touring band. And then beyond that, you know, from a personal perspective, I was searching for something for me to pass on that knowledge, and providing that those opportunities as a DJ tutor is great, but this program just took it to another dimension. It really didn't. That's what I feel my purpose has been throughout this 35-year journey.
Yeah, sounds like a great journey as well, Mark. Quite jealous. I'm conscious that we've overran slightly, but there's just one question which you've not got to. So if we've got time, yes. Penny, regarding cognitive outcomes, after DJing program, were you able to get feedback about or measures of change in respect of attention, memory, other functions?
That's definitely a question out there from a neuropsychologist, definitely, or a psychologist. So yeah, so The first initial brain camp was really a pilot group, just to make sure it was feasible and make sure everything had worked well and that everything worked well for the participants. So we looked more at kind of those measures of self-esteem and well-being and active engagement in the rest of their life. So it was more about measuring functional change with that respect. In that respect, but not measuring cognitive outcomes. So whoever it is that's asked that question, if they would like to run like a trial and get together and maybe look at measuring and evaluating some of that, particularly before we've got the next brain bootcamp coming up in July, I would really love to do that. So I think that would be great, and we can share that information. But yeah, the focus really on this time was just developing a program, making sure it was feasible, making sure all the elements suited the individual needs and could be flexible enough to be adapted for individuals. So yeah, we'll get that study run, and maybe next year we'll be talking to you about that, about the outcomes from that.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, thanks again for your time, both of you. It's been a great start to the afternoon. Just to remind all the other attendees, again, grateful for you joining us today. There is a further webinar which is coming up on the 8th of December, and as my colleague mentioned earlier today, that's in relation to transitioning into young adulthood. There's a link in the webinar for you to sign up to register that if you haven't already. And likewise, if you could please fill in the feedback forms. They only take a really short amount of time, and if there's further topics that you want to hear from us about, then we'll obviously put that on if you can fill in those forms. So again, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and enjoy the rest of your day.